You think you'll finally talk openly about money once you have enough of it? You won't. You go quiet at 0 because the number's too small to say out loud. You go quiet again above 10 million for the exact opposite reason. In between, you'll whisper, round down, brag through your things, and finally speak in numbers you'd never say to a stranger. I'll walk you through all 8 versions of you talking about money. Find the one you're living in right now. Picture the version of you at a family gathering when someone asks the question everyone dreads. So how much are you actually making these days? You laugh it off. You say enough to get by? Change the subject to the food, anything to avoid saying an actual number out loud. That's not privacy, that's protection. From pity, or worse, from a kind of quiet judgment you're not ready to survive. Now picture a different version. Same person, a few years on, a few raises in. You're not hiding the money anymore, you're just not saying it directly. You post the kitchen renovation. You mention the trip, not the price tag. You let the watch do the talking at a work dinner, and when someone compliments it, you shrug like it's nothing. The number never leaves your mouth, it doesn't have to. The object already said it for you. And picture one more version. Later, at a dinner with people who are finally, genuinely your peers, someone mentions their portfolio return like it's the weather. Someone else names a number for a second property without blinking. You do the same, back and forth, comparing real figures like it's just conversation. Because at this table, for the first time, it actually is. 3 completely different relationships with the same 11 words. How much money do you actually have? Maybe you recognize the deflection at the family table. Maybe you recognize the watch doing the talking. Maybe both years apart. That's the whole point. You don't have one way of talking about money. You have 8 and you're currently living inside one without a name for it. Here's the part nobody tells you. How openly you talk about money was never about your personality. It's not that some people are private and some are open. It's that what you say about money tracks exactly what you're afraid it will cost you to say it. And that fear changes completely 8 separate times as the number grows. At 0, the fear is pity. At 150,000, the fear is looking like you're bragging. At 10 million, the fear is looking like a target. Same mouth, same topic. A completely different calculation running underneath every single time you open it. I'm going to walk you through 8 levels of wealth. Not as a ladder toward finally being comfortable talking about money, but as a full arc. It goes up again. And then, somewhere past the top, it comes all the way back down to the exact same silence you started with, just for the opposite reason. 8 levels, 8 different relationships with the truth about what you have. Each one has a name because a silence without a name just looks like secrecy, or shame, or arrogance, depending on who's watching. A silence with a name is just information about what you're protecting. This isn't a lecture about being more transparent or owning your worth. Those assume more talking is always healthier. It almost never is. It depends entirely on which fear is currently driving the silence or the bragging or the careful vagueness in between. So watch closely. Somewhere in the next 8 levels, you'll recognize exactly how you talk about money right now and why. We start at the bottom, where the number is too small to say out loud. $0. This is where the silence starts, and it starts as protection, not secrecy. Someone asks what you do for money, or worse, how much is in your account, and you deflect before you've even decided to. You change the subject, joke about being broke, laugh in a way that's supposed to close the topic before it opens. You've done this so many times, the deflection barely registers as a choice anymore. None of this is a decision, it's reflex. This is shame silence. When the number is small enough to feel like a verdict on your worth, talking about it plainly feels like handing someone evidence against you, so the brain shuts the topic down before the sentence finishes. Not because you're hiding a crime, but because you've learned somewhere that this specific truth invites pity or judgment you're not equipped to sit through. The silence isn't dishonesty. It's a door closing on a room you're not ready to let anyone into, and it closes faster than you can decide whether you wanted it to. Shame silence keeps you safe from that specific pain, and completely alone with it, because the people who could actually help never get the real number either. And the next level doesn't remove the silence. It just gives you your first small reason to loosen it. $10,000. A buffer exists now? And for the first time, you can admit something without the whole truth coming out. Someone asks how you're doing financially, and instead of deflecting completely, you say, "I'm okay actually." True, technically, and carefully incomplete. You'll confirm you're saving. You won't confirm how much. You might even smile a little when you say it, a small, genuine relief that wasn't available a year ago. The first time in a long while that a money question didn't feel like a trap. The real number stays exactly where it was, unspoken. This is cautious confession. Once real desperation fades, silence stops being total, but it doesn't become honesty either. It becomes a rounded-down, pre-approved version of the truth, released only far enough to stop looking broke, never far enough to invite a follow-up question. You're not lying. You're issuing a press release instead of an answer, and you've gotten quietly good at knowing exactly where that line sits. Cautious confession lets you finally exhale in conversation, while the actual figure stays exactly as private as it was at zero. And the next level doesn't ask you to reveal more to everyone. It asks you to start revealing something to someone. $50,000. You start telling the truth, just not to everyone. With one or two people, a partner, a best friend, you'll actually say the number out loud, sometimes almost testing how it feels to hear yourself say it. With your parents, your wider family, most of your friend group, the deflection from step one quietly comes back, fully intact, as if it never left. This is selective disclosure. The fear has disappeared. It's just been sorted. This person won't judge me. This person might. This person will definitely tell someone else. You end up running two completely different money talk policies at once, often in the same week, depending entirely on who's asking. Not because you're two-faced, but because the actual risk of saying the number really is different in each relationship, and some part of you has already done that math before the question even lands. Selective disclosure is the first version of you that feels like relief and secrecy in the same sentence, honest with a tiny circle, silent everywhere else, and doing careful math about which is which before you speak. And the next level stops being about who you trust with the number and starts being about what you let speak instead of you. $150,000. This is where you stop saying numbers and start letting things say them for you. You mention the renovation, not the mortgage. You post the vacation, not the fare. Someone compliments the watch and you say thanks, got it a while back, instead of naming the number that's obviously attached to it. The information gets out anyway, exactly as intended, landing with more weight than a number ever could, because things read as effortless in a way that numbers never do. Your mouth stays technically clean the entire time. This is coded signaling. Once the number is genuinely good, saying it directly starts to feel like bragging, so the brain finds an indirect route. Let the object, the trip, the address do the talking, and enjoy plausible deniability that you ever said anything at all. It's status communication with an alibi built in, and it works precisely because everyone around you is fluent in the same unspoken code. Coded signaling gets you the recognition without the risk of sounding like you're asking for it. A very specific kind of talking about money that technically involves no talking about money whatsoever. And at the next level, you stop needing the alibi. $500,000. For the first time, saying the actual number starts to feel good instead of dangerous. You mention the portfolio at dinner. You state the property value without rounding it down. You compare notes with someone else's numbers, openly, almost competitively, because at this level, the number isn't shameful anymore. It's proof, and saying it out loud has started to feel less like a risk and more like an announcement, one you find yourself looking forward to making. This is performative openness. Once the fear of pity is long gone and the fear of looking like a target hasn't fully arrived yet, honesty about money briefly becomes a status display of its own. The specificity itself is the flex. Naming the exact figures signals a confidence the rounded, coded versions from earlier levels never could. Performative openness feels like the most honest version of you yet. And it is, but it's an honesty performed for effect, not offered for connection, and that distinction matters more than it seems right now. And the next level starts quietly asking what that openness is actually. $1 million. The openness from the last level starts working against you, so you pull it back. on purpose this time. A distant relative asks for a loan you didn't see coming. An old friend gets weird after you mention a number too specific. You notice people doing quiet math about you in a room, and you don't love what that math produces. So the real figures go back into hiding, deliberately this time, not out of shame, but out of something closer to strategy. This is strategic vagueness. Unlike the silence at zero, this vagueness is protecting your self-worth. It's protecting your relationships and your safety from the exact openness you enjoyed one level ago. You've learned that a specific number changes how people treat you, ask you, and resent you, so you trade precision for peace on purpose, the way a company trades transparency for legal protection when the stakes get high enough. Strategic vagueness is the first silence you chose with your eyes open. And it works, right up until it starts costing you the closeness that selective disclosure used to give you for free. And the next level narrows the circle you'll be honest with down to almost nobody. $5 million. The circle of people who get the real number shrinks to almost nothing and stays there. You'll say exact figures to the handful of people at a genuinely similar level, casually the way Step 5 once felt to everyone. Outside that room, the topic barely exists. Not deflected, not coded, just never raised, because there's no longer a version of the conversation that ends well with almost anyone else. And you've stopped expecting one to, the same way you stopped expecting the family table to understand you back at Step 1. This is peer-only disclosure. Money talk becomes a members-only language at this level, spoken fluently in one very small room and not attempted anywhere else, because the gap between your numbers and everyone else's has gotten wide enough that honesty stops connecting you to people and starts separating you from them instead, no matter how gently you try to phrase it. Peer-only disclosure feels like belonging inside that one room, and a very specific, very total kind of quiet everywhere outside it. And the final level takes that narrowing circle and closes it completely. $10 million and beyond. The circle closes, and it closes exactly where it opened. You stop naming figures almost entirely, even to some of the peers from the last level. A journalist's question, a stranger's curiosity, even a friend's casual guess gets the same flat non-answer every time. Delivered so smoothly, it barely registers as a deflection at all. From the outside, it looks identical to the silence at zero. The same deflection, the same closed door. This is exposure silence, and it's shame silence from Step 1, wearing the opposite reason. At zero, you went quiet because the number felt too small to survive judgment. Here, you go quiet because the number feels too large to survive exposure, to requests, to resentment, to becoming a headline instead of a person. Same silence, same door closing, a completely different threat standing on the other side of it, one you couldn't have imagined back at the first level. This is the level where people with more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes say almost nothing about it, not because they're modest and not because they're hiding a crime, but because the mouth that once protected a small number now protects a large one, using the exact same move, 8 levels, 1 circle. And once you see that, the whole arc looks completely different. Here's the rehabilitation. Because you've earned it after 8 levels. None of this was hypocrisy, and none of it was a character flaw, shame, silence, cautious confession, selective disclosure, coded signaling, performative openness, strategic vagueness, peer-only disclosure, exposure, silence, 8 names for the same underlying question, answered 8 different ways. What does saying this number cost me right now, and to whom? It was never about being private or open as a personality. It was never about finally becoming the kind of person who talks about money comfortably. There is no such person. There's just a person whose current number changes what talking about it threatens and who adjusts, mostly without noticing, every single time. That's actually useful, because a pattern with a name is something you can catch yourself doing. The next time you deflect a question you didn't need to deflect, or let a purchase speak for you instead of speaking yourself, or go quiet with someone who genuinely wouldn't judge you, you now have language for what's actually happening instead of just an urge you can't explain. You don't fix this by deciding to just be more open. Step 8 proves that advice collapses at the top exactly like it does at the bottom. You fix it by noticing which fear is currently running the silence or the bragging, pity, judgment, envy, exposures, and asking it one honest question. Is this actually the room where that fear applies, or is it just the oldest habit in your mouth still guarding a door nobody's trying to open? Start there. Just naming which door it is that the whole shift. But there's one specific moment inside this arc I didn't unpack, because it deserves its own video entirely. Somewhere around that first $10,000 saved, something shifts that has nothing to do with what you say about money, and everything to do with what you suddenly believe about yourself because of it. It's the quietest threshold in this whole arc, and almost nobody names it while it's happening to them. Because on the surface, nothing about that day looks any different from the one before it. If shame silence is where this story about talking starts, that threshold is where a completely different story about believing quietly begins. And it explains something this video can't explain on its own. Why the number itself changes so much less than what you decide it means. That's next.